We're going to look at Roman art, and you can look at Roman art from anywhere from about 100 before the Common Era to, and it depends who you read and what you believe, etc., to about 300 or 400 or 500. Some say even as late as 600 of the Common Era. And the reasons why the Roman Empire declines and falls, to borrow Edward Gibbons's mammoth work, an 18th century, late 18th century study, which is way outdated, but still true. We just added more things to it. There are so many reasons. And the bottom line is all cultures fail, for any number of reasons. And it's usually more than one. And now we are all very sensitive. I hope we are all very sensitive to the fact that cultures can fail because of pandemics, because of health issues, which have affected others too. Okay, so we're going to look at Roman art mainly today, but I at the end, last time, I kind of rushed through the end panel of the Last Judgment. One of my favorite paintings because it's just so meaningful. And in so many ways is pure Michelangelo. You want to see him as a Renaissance artist, and you can call him a Renaissance artist, but stylized, he's mannerist all the way. He's very individual, the way he thinks, the way he depicts the human form, the exaggeration, he's very individual. And that is all the essential of mannerism. If you don't know the subject of this 40-foot end panel here, you couldn't guess it. It's just like lots of naked, rough, bubbly, muscular bodies all over the damn place with a ton of movement. And there's nothing in the Last Judgment that implies movement. There's nothing in the Last Judgment that implies muscular bodies, etc. And I stated that it may not be out of the ordinary to wonder if Michelangelo might have been influenced by what that monk did up north in Germany, and changed the rest of the world. This one section in the middle here, I wanted to show details of. I think I have one more detail that, yeah, okay, good. So here's Charon, the oarsman on the river Styx. This is hardly a Christian hell. And you see this fellow right there holding this guy's kind of big butt right there, very carefully. And this fellow, oh, here, let me help you down. It's very strange. Why is everyone being so nice? It's already been determined they're going to hell. And they're going to get whacked by Charon here, if nothing else. Well, what I want to focus on right now is these fellas right here. Actually, let me back up ever so slightly. You'll notice that on the left-hand side here, these are all the people who have ever lived, and they've died, and their souls are rising up from their graves. And on this side, they come on up, and they're being lifted up into heaven, because this is heaven over here and over there. Now, this group of angels are fighting, I don't have a detail, I should, of her. They're fighting, literally smacking these souls who are coming up from hell, who want to get into heaven, but are not being allowed to. But I wanted to focus on this isolated group. You see, they are literally isolated. They've got all this blue around them. So let's look at them just for a second. And what are they doing? Well, what you see there is, as I remember, 11 men. 2 are holding books, and the rest have horns. They're blowing their horns. And that's not true. Look carefully. Okay, what are the books? Well, it's not entirely clear, but you could surmise, or you could make an argument that These are these scratchings or the books of life that they lived with all their good things and all their foibles. And yeah, notice on this side, that's all the people going to heaven. Please notice the men with their horns. They are alarms, literally. They're blowing it. It's the end of days. They're blowing their horns. They're looking at those people who will be coming up and going to heaven. What's happening on the other side? Look at this guy. Yeah, he's holding a horn. Is he blowing it? Okay, what about him? No, it's over his shoulder. This fellow is blowing it, but he's blowing it still in that direction. And this fellow over here is not blowing it at all. In other words, even at the last judgment, the final horns are not being blown. Even as they're looking at hell, it's not all written, not written yet. And there's nothing in Catholic dogma that states that this is the way it should be. This is Michelangelo, seems to me. This is pure Michelangelo. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Yeah, it's the end of time for the people who are going to go to the nice place. But for the people going to hell, no. They still have a chance to work things out. That's how I see that. Okay, I wanted to do that. Also, we're going to see this work in the Uffizi. There are 15 copies of it. Artemisia Gentileschi was a woman artist. You probably can't name too many women artists before the 20th century. That doesn't mean they weren't there. In fact, during their lifetime, they were very important and very famous. Without exception, every woman artist that you can point a stick at, every woman artist is an artist because her father or uncle, brother, occasionally husband, but that's very rare, they were artists. Now, the reason that's important is if you want to be an artist, you've got to learn how to mix the colors and mix the paints and do the canvas. And you've got to learn how to draw in perspective or lighting or colors and everything else. You go to art school. First of all, there are very few art schools. Most of the so-called art schools are apprenticeships. And Artemisia's father, Orazio Gentileschi, had a huge apprenticeship. He had loads of people who paid him. He had essentially an art school. And I'll tell you a little bit about Artemisia because I think it colors the nature of her works. I normally wouldn't give a kind of a Freudian interpretation. I feel uncomfortable that way since I'm not sure you can accurately psychoanalyze a thing as opposed to a person, because a thing can't talk back to you. Artemisia, while in her father's studio at one point, was raped by Agostino Tasso, a man who hired who Orazio hired to teach Artemisia perspective. By the way, this probably was not rare then. What was rare was this: she fought it in the law courts. Then, like now, unfortunately, if a woman steps up and accuses someone of rape, their name usually is dragged through the mud. Hers was. And people simply don't believe. By the way, she took Agostino Tasso to court. The then lie detector test, which was a thumb screw, a piece of wood that fits on a thumb and you tighten it, and it causes the thumb to really ache and get bloody. She even testified under that torture, and her testimony never wavered. He was found guilty of raping her, incidentally, and he served 6 months. It was a 9-month trial. He served 6 months. Her name was ruined. Her father had her move out of Rome, married her to the first bachelor who came around. She never changed her last name. And what we see in her work is she tends to choose subjects that focus on women who get in trouble, maybe sexually or sensually, through no fault of their own, but who have their own interior strength to deal with it. Here's the story of Judith and Holofernes. This is in the book of Judith, which is in the Christian Apocrypha, or it's in part of the Tanakh, not the Torah, but it's a separate book. And it's about the Assyrian general Holofernes, who was about ready to come down and wipe out a small Jewish group down below the hills. He had been lusting after Judith, but of course she's a sweet young thing and she has rejected his advances. The night before he's about ready to pounce and destroy the Jews with his troops, Judith, we're told this in the book of Judith, Judith goes up with her maidservant, very important, older maidservant, younger Judith, and under the guise of, okay, Holofernes, I know what you want, slips into his tent. And after they have some drinks, as you see, she turns the tide. What she does is she somehow gets the strength, the fortitude to execute Holofernes, and not only that, to decapitate him, put his head in a bag, and she with her maidservants slip out. The guards let him out. The next morning, when the guards go in to wake up their general, not only do they find him quite dead, but quite headless, which was a shock, and she saved this small Jewish group by doing this thing. That's the story. And as you look at it, you'll see, well, first of all, it's very popular during the Baroque time. That's this dramatic lighting. This is like stage lighting, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't look like anyone's bedroom or anything. It looks like it could happen on the stage. It's good drama. The definition of Baroque, actually in music, so much of it too, is dynamism, and we use the term sometimes pregnant moment. That up until the very last moment before the thing happens. And that's what's happening here. Because here, Holofernes on the bed, being held down by by this lady, who is the maidservant. Notice she's younger. And here is Judith doing the execution. Look at Judith. She's a machine. Look at those Popeye forearms of hers. They're parallel. And there is no way she is going to falter here. And she's in the midst of decapitating, killing Holofernes. I mean, in the midst. Here you see the blood splurting all over. I'll show you a detail in a minute. You even see blood on her breast and blood on her clothes. And his eyes are open because he sees what's happening, but he's not dead yet. You can almost hear this blade going through the cartilage and the veins and everything. Look at her face. There's no implication that she's kind of young and is just trying to get the energy to do this. No. By the way, in case you wondered, that is a self-portrait. Gentileschi put herself in the picture. We know that because she's got two things. Number one, she's got a proper Italian double chin, which she has, and she's wearing a pearl drop earring. And in the other works in which she puts herself in, she has the same thing. So there. That is a woman of determination. Anyhow, you're going to see that work in the Uffizi. Okay, now we're to Rome. Okay, so I don't. I've got to move real quickly here because I promised an hour. Last time was an hour and a half. You were very kind. So this is a Colosseum that you're not going to see. This is the Colosseum from a drone, but we'll walk up into it, etc. Actually, our entranceway is right here, right over there, etc. So Well, actually, there's one entranceway there and one over here, depending on which one is open. Usually it's this one. But what you can see from here is that this Colosseum, a Roman Colosseum, it was built in about the year 80, and it was built literally for entertainment of the Romans. Of course, it didn't have lighting back in those days, so it would be during the day. But the people who would give the emperor grief are wealthy people anyhow, well-placed political people. They don't have to work. So you want to use them, you want to make things available. And also old soldiers, when coming back, you want to give them something to do, because if they don't, they could cause trouble. So here you go. Here's a stadium. We've dug up little pallets, and the rows are 1A, 1B, 2C, just like we do in football stadiums or basketball arenas today. You could sit on the shaded side if you were wealthy. If you were a senator, you were on the first level. If you were other people, you were the second or third levels. You'll see it has an outside, a facade. You don't see it here. The reason why you don't see it is because after the Roman Empire fell, by the way, and I date the Roman Empire falling to about 315, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. So I tend to date a little earlier, and I'll show you why in a second. But the reason you don't see it here is because once the Roman Empire is no longer the Roman Empire, everyone goes and says, well, I want to build a house. There's a quarry down the road, and that's, this or other places. Yes. Matt.
Yeah, I was wondering, the arch in the background, is that the Arch of Titus, or?
Oh, no. This arch, I'll show it in a second. Thank you very much.
Okay, cool.
That's the Arch of Constantine.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mentioned this, I think, for my students.
Okay, and I'm going to show that in detail in a second. The Arch of Titus is up here in the Forum, and we'll cross the street and go up to the Forum to see that. And we'll walk right through. Yeah, you can walk right through the Arch of Titus. Sometimes they close it off, but I think it's open now. Right. So this is a later arch. Anyhow, this is called the Colosseum. First of all, it's an amphitheater. Well, it's actually not an amphitheater. It's a double amphitheater. Notice it's not circular. It's kind of egg-shaped like this. And it's not the only double amphitheater in the Roman Empire, but there weren't very many. Just amphitheater would do. But this was a double one because you're in Rome, etc. And it was called the Colosseum not because it's a big stadium. It's called the Colosseum, which, by the way, it's a made-up word, because right outside of it was a colossus, was a huge sculpture of the emperor, because he wanted you to know he made this. Was a huge, don't worry, it doesn't exist anymore. So, but we're told, so where are you going today? I'm going to see, the games down by that big head, by the Colossus. So it was called the Colosseum because of that. But I want to focus on the facade. We'll see here in a minute. But what you can see here down below is, and you can stand right here and right over there as well. It was wood all across here, and they could flood this. The Tiber River runs just behind here. You could flood it, among other things you had to, because, you had to get the blood and the sand out, etc. They even had mock ship battles in here because you could flood it. Okay, let's go. Okay, so this is the Colosseum like you will never see it, with nobody around. Chuck knows exactly what I mean. And I want you to see the outside. The Romans were architects. The Romans were practical people. You want laws? Don't go to the Greeks. They're philosophers. They'll sit around and wonder about, what's the meaning of life. Romans will not do that too much. Romans instead, well, they're more practical. Okay, I've got to have a big building to put lots of people in. What's it going to be? Okay, I've got to build roads. Why? Because you've got an army, and the army's got to get going. You're going to be practical. The Romans said, okay, we want art, because obviously we got to show we have good taste. We'll do Greek art. We'll just copy Greek stuff. In fact, so much of the stuff we call Greek art today is actually Roman. There'll be some stuff in the Vatican, I'll show you, and it says it's a Roman copy of a Greek, and I'll show you why. And that's what you see here. If the Greeks could come back from the dead and see this structure, they would have a cow, because the Romans decided to use the 3 Greek orders. An order is an architectural order. And they said, yeah, it looks pretty. So we'll put one order on the bottom, another order on the top, another one on top of that. So, it's just decoration. What the hell? The lower one is called Doric. This is called Ionic, second one. And the top one is Corinthian. I have a detail of this. Okay, Doric is just a straight column, sometimes with or without a foot. And notice the capital on the top, just flat. Actually, what we call this in Greek is an abacus. It's just flat, so it holds it up. The Ionic one is a little thinner, and it has spirals. The capitals have these spirals. It's called Ionic because those spirals resemble ram's horns from Iona in Greece. But that was a decoration. I don't know if you can see the top. And the top is a flower motif. The capitals are flower. That was called Corinthian. So here's the Doric order, the Ionic, and the Corinthian, all in one building. The Greeks would never do that. But the Romans, hey, it's pretty. And besides, the Greeks did it. Well, they didn't do it this way, but they did that. So you'll see that. So here we'll go, and I'll try to herd you like cats into one spot and climb up someplace so I can take group pictures as we walk all around, etc. It's a fun place to be. It's really exciting. I just ask that you remember, thousands of people lost their lives here. So just remember that as well. This is a marvelous photo I found from 1870. It's a photograph. So here's some priests in the foreground, and this is Rome. Excuse me, there we go. And here's the Arch of Constantine that I mentioned just a minute ago with Matt. And we'll see that in detail. But you see, I mean, it's just a big ruin. And when you go to see that today, you'll see what I mean. Okay, you will also notice this. It looks like, I don't know, termites have attacked this building. There are holes all over the place. Does anyone want to make a guess as to why there are holes all over it? No. Well, actually, the holes are later. And the reason they're there is because you could see iron ore in this soft marble. And over the centuries, then people would dig out the ores to melt them and then make them into sculptures, shields, or weapons. So, I mean, that's why it all looks like that. You're going to see that all around there. Here's more of these holes. See, nobody cared after Rome fell. It was right. It's all it is something for me to go and get. Okay. Here's the Arch of Constantine, and there's like 4,000 of your best friends trying to go on in there, etc. We'll have our whispers, those little things on. I have a person going to get the tickets because there are timed tickets, so we don't have to stand that much in a line. You'll find out I hate lines, so I find ways around that. Okay, here's the Arch of Constantine next to that. And if you were to tell me, well, that doesn't look like it works well together, you would be right. Because the Colosseum dates from about 80 of this era. The Arch of Constantine dates from about 315, 315. Here. Now, what is a stone arch doing next to this Roman Colosseum? I date the end of the Roman era to about 315. And the reason I do, as Matt would know, is because that's when Constantine, the Holy Roman Emperor and the general of the day, said in 315, he said this revolutionary statement: it's okay to be Christian. He didn't say you have to be, but that's what everybody heard. Because up until then, if you're Christian or Jewish, or you have a declaration towards an allegiance towards somebody or something other than the Roman Empire, and nothing personal, but we're going to throw you in and torture you or kill you, or you're going to have to hide anyhow. But by 315, Constantine looked to his left and looked to his right, and his generals were secretly being Christian. Everyone was. He said, oh, what the hell? Okay, you got to be Christian. Now, let me tell you about arches in Roman art. So you are a Roman soldier in the year 80, let's say, and you've just come back from Gaul or from France, because the roads from Rome lead up there. And you have just raped and pillaged, and because when you have a war, actually up until the 20th century, when you have a war and you win, then you're allowed to steal as much crap as you want to. That's always the way it's been, except for the 20th and 21st century. We've got some different rules, or we try to get different rules in. Anyhow, you bring stuff back. You're always bringing stuff back. And when you come back to Rome, then we're going to build a big wooden arch, and the army, with all their spoils, with all the crap that they stole, will march on through. Oh, by the way, you're an infantryman. You're not keeping the gold. You give that to your boss. You give that to the lieutenant, and he's got to give some up to captains, etc. But you get stuff. So everyone's coming through. Everyone's cheering, clapping. You might think that the origin of a parade is when cute little children walk on down and you throw candy. No, a parade, the origin of a parade is military, and it's to salute the returning soldiers and all the spoils that they bring back, the new wealth that they bring back. So this is what would happen in the year 100. You'd come on back. They would build one big wooden arch, and at the end, as you're done walking through it, the troops, they would light it on fire. And it would be a big conflagration, and everyone would have a great time. 9 months later, everyone's pregnant, and you eat and drink, and that's a traditional arch. Rome is full of arches. This is not a traditional arch. First of all, it's not made out of wood. It's made out of marble. Second of all, it is not one arch. There are 3 openings. 3. Is there anything in religion that focuses on 3? Right. Okay. Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Now, in the roundels here, and you'll get to see them a little bit, well, you can't go underneath anymore. They put this up, and they usually have a netting here. I'll tell you a story about that when I'm there. So you can't get too close. But these tell all the story of our man Constantine, and how once he converted, then he was able to kill all of his enemies in the name of Christianity, which is, of course, what Christ wanted him to do. And so everything was fine and dandy. And so this is a good PR monument for him. Now, I'm going to show you a detail, I think, just of this section. You can't see it too well, There you go. I guess I found a good side. Now, if you look closely, you'll see on this upper register, there are 6 men here. There are 6 men here, and there's somebody, headless now, sitting on a chair. I wonder who that could be. 12 men and 1 person that's been isolated to be a little more important. Wrong. It's not Jesus and the apostles, though that's the reference. It's Constantine and his emperors. Constantine is saying, look, I'm just like Jesus. Look, I'm right here. And those are now, style-wise, this is not Roman, it is early Christian. Now that actually is a style. And I'm not sure we're going to focus too much on early Christian when we go to the Vatican, although there's lots of examples there. Just because there's so much there and we'll be shuffling around. I'll stop for a little bit, but look at the figures. They all look macrocephalic, don't they? I mean, they're not in proportion, are they? If you couldn't stand, first of all, I mean, are these dwarfs or midgets or something? The proportions are off, and their heads are twisting and turning in ways that yours and mine don't work. It doesn't look Greek at all. It doesn't even look Roman. It's early Christian. Now, does that mean that, all the A-listed artists were out that day, and so he only had to do B or C? No. It was a stylistic change. Early Christian art is different than Roman art. First of all, it's different because sometimes the subjects are different. So you're not going to have pagan subjects in early Christian art. You're going to have subjects of the Good Shepherd or stories of Jesus, or any story from the New Testament. So it's simply a story. But stylistically, it's different too. Don't forget, Christianity offers something very, very different than Greek or Roman. The Roman gods were basically the same as the Greek gods, just with different names, pagan. Everything's determined. The way you are born, that's how you will be. That's the Greek and the Roman way. You can't really work out of it. Christianity believed, taking from Judaism, that you had free will and you could change. And better yet, when you die, you can come back. You will live another life. Well, there isn't this sort of thing in Greek and Roman culture and beliefs. So it was something promised, but you couldn't see it. So this early Christian art has a lot of promise to it and not a lot of focus on the observable of this life, because you're going to have a much better life in the next life. So don't think of this as bad art. It is different and attending to different ideas. Yeah, you'll see this on there. So here we go. See, you can't see too close there. And then we cross the street, and over here is the Roman Forum, which is huge, and we don't want to walk through it, and it's just nasty as hell, and it's just a shell of what it used to be, but we'll walk through it. But I don't think we're going to stop on too many places. You can get museumed out on artwork too. Here is this one arch that that Matt was referring to, the Arch of Titus. And here's a little close up. And what happens is this. Oh yeah, see, in this picture, sometimes you can walk through it and sometimes you can't, but you can still see on this side right here, on this side right here. Oops, there we go. Here. This is carved on the arch of the Arch of Titus. And this is literally the Roman soldiers marching back from Judea because the general Titus finally beat those crafty Israelites in Canaan and in Jerusalem. And here they're marching away with the spoils, including, that's a menorah, a Sabbath menorah made out of gold that was in the temple. So they stole everything and they brought it back. And so this is the sculpture. For just as a side note, most of you think the Star of David is a symbol of Judaism, you know, that triangle thing, you know, right? And it is today, but for more centuries, this menorah, the shape of the menorah, was the sign of Judaism, not the Star of David. It was first the menorah. And this is a they're 6 days, and of course in the middle, the seventh day was for rest. Anyhow, we're going to see that. And here is the carved in a beautiful Roman script that salutes the Senate and all the people of Rome, including Titus's cousin Vespasian, who he was victorious for. That's all it says. Beautiful. We're going to go to see the Pantheon. The Pantheon dates from about 125 of this era. Just a gorgeous building, and you will never see it like this. There'll be 400,000 of your best friends in front of it, all around it. And there are places to eat all around there too. I remember there's a McDonald's down this street even. Yeah. Okay, so you look at it, and if you know anything about Greek, and I don't know, it's got a Greek pediment, and it's got columns. They look Greekish, sort of. They're not at all. They're Roman, and it's all fine and dandy. The monument and the fountain here come later, but this is the floor plan. Floor plan, if you're not used to seeing one, indicates what would happen if you cut off the entire building 1 inch off the ground. This is what you would see. So we were looking at it this way. So you walk up some steps on all sides. There's this entranceway, and then it turns into a circle. Well, you didn't see that really here. You almost thought it was going to be a rectangular building like the Greeks did. Oh no, the Romans said, oh, we can do. So the Romans said, well, the Greeks did these rectangles, and with pediments, we'll do that, and we'll do a perfect circle as well. All the black here is something that the Romans really worked on, that we can thank them for, and they invented concrete. So, which is nothing more than some muck and little stones with lime. They didn't have cement then, but we use cement, which is basically lime anyhow, to hold this in. And then you've got a huge dome. These areas right here are niches for all the Roman gods, the pantheon of gods, the many gods, and they were all in there. Obviously, it was pagan. It dates about 125, even though the inscription on the front would not lead you to believe that. Because if you can read Latin, you'd see this. This stands for Marcus Agrippa, Lieutenant Consul, Third Consul, made this. That's what it says in Latin. And if you look up Marcus Agrippus, then you would see, oh, so it dates from 20 BC or 20 before the era? No, it's in homage to him. So it dates about 125. So this is what it looks like. And it is beautiful. It is huge. The Renaissance artist Raphael, who I did not show you, I don't think any pictures of, because he's not my favorite. We don't have a lot of time, but you're going to see stuff in the Uffizi surely on it, is buried here. He loved it. And the only reason we still have this building is because it immediately was converted into a church. And it's in the coffering you see here, these would have been probably gold hammered around there, and on the middle, on the inside, would have been a bronze something or other, a design. And if you want to see what that looks like, you go across the river up the hill to a place called Vatican City, because they stole it all and melted it down and repurposed it. One thing you can't see from that photo, this is a painting by I can't even see because I got stuff on my screen. I think it's Panini, Giovanni Panini, from about 1750. You see this? There's a hole there. And there was always a hole there. It's an oculus. Some have suggested the reason there's a hole there, among other things, is for essentially a clock. So when the sun is shining and it goes around, you can see where you are, what time of the day it is. Certainly it's there to get all the heat out as well. From the inside, it looks like a perfect circle. From the outside, it is not. And the reason it's not is because it had to be reinforced. And the Romans are the ones that reinforced it, and it's worked. It's been up there since 125, so it'll be here long after the house I'm in has fallen apart. I don't know. By the way, that oculus was left open. It's only been closed in recent times. That oculus, that opening there, is 27 feet across. And they just left it open. So that's really marvelous. So we're going in there as well. Here, so this is what the outside looks like. Now you might say, oh, this is boring as hell. Yeah, it does look boring because all the facing stone was stolen over the centuries. One thing I want you to know, we'll do this when we're there. I think I have to place 5 of you holding hands to go around these columns. They're huge. And they're not only huge, it's one piece of stone. The Greek columns were always cut and placed one on top of another, top of another, top of another. These are solid granite from Egypt. Why from Egypt? Well, Egypt is Roman during this time. Don't forget, Rome is big. So pretty big stuff. This is dynamite. And there are ice cream shops and lots of food stores all around here. It'll be real. Oh, yeah. And here are a few people. I did not take this photo. It distorts it, but you see the oculus in there too. One of the nice things is we're going at a time when it's not going to be very warm, because when it's hot in Rome, oh, it's hot because you got lots of people and very little air conditioning. So that's going to be nice. One of my favorite places, it's historically not that important. It's the Trevi Fountain. And it's a place to be seen. Here you see during the day, we'll probably walk by it during the day, but I'll take you there at night when the lights are on. It's just marvelous. And of course, you take a coin and throw it over your left shoulder and make a wish to come back to Rome. And if you do that, it works. Or you've given money to the Roman city. They collect the money in there from time to time. You're not allowed to swim in there, etc. This beautiful open sculpture that you see here. Okay, how are we doing? Oh, good, it's 7:50. So I'm going to stop sharing for the moment. Oh, yes, there. Good. I'm there. And I think this ends my little shtick on the Roman art that we're going to see. We will see churches, more churches. I just didn't show them. And one is right by the Hotel Ghiberti, which is really marvelous. So we can go. It's a big pilgrimage church too. And we can go there. One of the things you're going to love about the Hotel Ghiberti is it's really a nice. It's a 18th century hotel that was refurbished in the 19th century, and it's gorgeous. It's nice on the inside. The problem with it is it doesn't have like a big area for people to congregate in before we leave in the morning. So I'll probably have you all stay in the breakfast room, and then I'll come and get you when the bus is there to take us off to a place or when we're ready to walk in the morning.